Hi guys and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to talk about my first experience with San Pedro or Huachuma during a psychedelic ceremony in Peru. Disclaimer before we get into the actual trip report. This video is for educational and harm reduction purposes only, and I'm not telling you that this or any other substance is safe or legal. You are responsible for your own actions. With this disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the actual video. So I did this ceremony in Peru as a part of a retreat. I'm also wearing some stuff from Peru. This sweater I bought there as a small souvenir, and also this funny looking hat. You can see it here, it's typical for Peru. You see many people, especially the natives, wearing it around Peru in the Sacred Valley because it can get quite cold there and the mountain area there. And also those two figurines, I bought the small souvenirs from there. The blue bull figure you see here, it's called Torre de Pucara. And you see it in Peru. Often you see it on rooftops or inside of houses or apartments. And the people use it as a symbol for health, luck, protection, fertility, and stuff like that. And this one is called Mates Burilados. I have one with the motif of an owl. You can also find items like this with various motifs. So the psychedelic ceremony I was taking part in was part of a retreat for 1 week where we not only did psychedelics, but did various excursions to archaeological sites. Inca sites like Machu Picchu is probably the most famous one, but also Pisac, Ollantaytambo, and Sacsayhuaman. And we also did an excursion to a native community in Ausangate. They live at an elevation, they have their village at an elevation of more than 4,000 meters. And we had breakfast with this community. They were also showing us their alpacas and showing us some dances and songs. And then we also did horseback riding for 1.5 hours approximately in one direction to some beautiful glacial lakes. And yeah, also the whole retreat was a great experience. It was hosted by an organization called the Community Garden, and they are holding retreats in various countries, not only in Peru, but for example also in Mexico and Turkey. And I think they also do one in India, and I can definitely recommend them. They also use the money which is gained from the retreats as charity and donations for various indigenous communities, and they use it for stuff that they need, for example, for heating for school, for example, in Peru, but also, preservation of their native languages, traditions, customs, and so on. The event where I was participating was hosted by Dakota of Earth, the famous psychedelic YouTuber in the psychedelic community, and his friends Coleman and Fernanda. And they worked together with various shamans from different regions of Peru. So from the Sacred Valley region, where the retreat itself was held, but also from the Amazon jungle region in the north of Peru. And we were about 10 participants in this retreat. So it was Emily, Elise, Alyssa, Brad, Connor, Brandon, Juanito, Yannick, and Alex. I hope I didn't forget anybody. All those people were great and friendly, and I enjoyed the whole retreat very much. I'm also, a history buff, so I'm very interested in the archaeological sites, the Incan sites. And yeah, the whole retreat was great, and I can definitely recommend the community garden. So if they are holding a retreat that you're interested in, be sure to check them out. One thing I gotta say that was a little bit not ideal about this retreat was the schedule of this retreat. But they also told us they knew about it, and they said they were sorry that we were kind of the guinea pigs of this retreat, because the retreat in this form in Peru was held the first time, combining the archaeological sites and excursions with the psychedelic ceremonies. And the whole week was so packed from Monday until Friday, especially Friday, for example. We did the tour to the Ausangate, I was just mentioning, with the horseback riding. We started at 1:30 a.m. So basically during the night had a 4-hour bus drive, and then arrived at the native community in the morning and stayed there all day until the late afternoon, and then had a 4 hours drive back and arrived back at the retreat center at like 9:30 p.m. or something. So for me at least it was very tiring, Monday to Friday, the whole week. And the San Pedro ceremony was taking place on Saturday. So I would say the preparation wasn't ideal because I was just tired, from all the excursions. It would have been better if they would have prolonged the retreat for one day or something. One day, to do basically not much, nothing, just relax and prepare for the ceremony in the retreat center. So yeah, this would be more better. But other than that, the retreat was very good. It didn't really affect the San Pedro experience for me. I would say it affected the ayahuasca ceremony a little bit for me. This one was held one day later. It wasn't a bad trip or anything like that, but I was still very tired, from the whole week and probably also from the San Pedro ceremony. So I only had like very mild visuals during the ayahuasca ceremony. So it was not my first ayahuasca ceremony. I did it before, and the one I did before was much more intense for me. So maybe they could have spaced it out a little bit better, but otherwise I can still recommend them, and they are a great organization. What is mescaline? Mescaline is a psychedelic substance, and you can find it, for example, in the San Pedro cactus that I was using during this ceremony. The San Pedro cactus is native to South America, so to Peru, but also the neighboring countries like Bolivia, Colombia, Venezuela, Chile, Argentina. So it grows there. And there's also another type of cactus, which is called peyote, uh, where it also contains mescaline. And I never tried it, but I guess like the trip should be similar. And the peyote is more found in more like desert-like areas like Texas, northern Mexico, southwestern United States like Arizona, New Mexico, and so on. Yeah, so the actual trip began at 11 a.m. during that day. So we were in a ceremonial room, which was a small hut or small building, I would say, in the area of the retreat center. And yeah, we began with the first cup, and one of the facilitators, Fernanda, was uh, was talking. She was overseeing the ceremony, and we drank the first cup. And mescaline or San Pedro, in my experience, it takes quite a while until you feel any effects. So I started to, for me, the trip was kind of mild but still good. And I started to feel effects at like maybe at the earliest 1 hour or 1.5 hours, I would say. And I drank 3 cups, so it wasn't like a small portion or something. And this trip was for me was totally different from, for example, the ayahuasca trip, which was very intense and visual. And the San Pedro wasn't visual at all for me, and it was more like emotional. So the native name for San Pedro in Peru is called Huachuma. And Huachuma means without head. Without head, not in the sense that you are going dumb or something, but in the sense that you forget your logical thinking and you get out of your head and more into your heart. So, not thinking, but more feeling, more the emotions. And I would describe it as kind of a heart opener because sometimes we tend to get detached from our emotions and just think rationally. And during this ceremony, I really felt something, felt very emotional at times. And yeah, I drank the first cup, we did like a short break of the ceremony, and I was staying outside with two other participants, and we enjoyed, just lying around in the grass in the retreat center, and looking up at the sky, looking up at the beautiful nature, and everything seemed a little bit more intense than when you are sober, where you don't tend to really don't notice, the nature, the surroundings, and so on as much. Later, we went back to the ceremonial place again, and this ceremony was very long. So like I mentioned, it started at 11 a.m. and I think it lasted until, I don't know, maybe 7 or something, 7 p.m. in the evening, where the ceremony was officially closed. And yeah, it wasn't as intense for me, but still quite good. Fernanda, so one of the facilitators, was talking. She was, I know, holding the ceremony and was talking about different topics. For example, death, how we can, how do you say it in English? How we can see death, death of relatives, and also different topics. For example, our upbringing in the school system, which can be quite negative at times, because of the doctrines there and so on. And at first I was like, I'm not really used to someone talking so much during a ceremony. The ceremonies where I participated that I know so far is, you there's first there's an opening, opening ritual or something like that. Then everybody gets their, in my case it was, for example, ayahuasca. Everybody gets their cup, but then basically everybody gets back to, retreats to their place and has his or her own experience. And just with music and stuff like that. And of course, if somebody is facing problems or has a bad trip, one of the facilitators helps him normally, and so on. But other than that, everybody is in their own world, in their own trip. But this ceremony was a little bit different because Fernanda, so the main facilitator, was talking during the whole trip. And at first I was like, kind of, why you talk so much? I want to, be in my own world and enjoy my own trip, because in my opinion, some of the trips can get quite introspective. But later I thought, yeah, why not? Why not talk about different heavy topics, like death, our upbringing, and stuff like that. And yeah, the interesting thing was, if I would talk about topics like that when I'm sober, it would just be like a rational discussion, thinking, just thinking, without getting too emotional. But with the San Pedro, uh, it it was definitely more emotional. I got more into my emotions, and I also cried a couple of times. Not really noticeable, I would guess, for the other participants, but I could definitely, feel the tears coming from my eyes, because I was moved uh, because of the discussions. One thing I forgot to mention was, before the actual San Pedro ceremony, we did like mapacho. Mapacho is a tobacco, and it's snuffed into your, blowed into your nose, but someone else blows it inside of your nose. And for me, it was the first time I did it, and it was not a really good experience, I must say, because it's supposed to, focus and ground you more, so you stay more in the present moment. But for me, it was just like I had tears coming out of my face. But those tears were, this was before the actual San Pedro ceremony. Those tears were not emotional tears, but more like just from pain, because my head and my body felt so weird. So just from pain for a couple of minutes. And then I had a very dizzy feeling for like maybe half an hour. So I had to lay completely on the floor. So the mapacho wasn't that great for me, and it didn't ground me or something. So I didn't feel any difference in my mental space. But the San Pedro, I liked very much. And yeah, it was mostly, non-visual, so it wasn't a wild trip or anything like that. Different topics of discussion. And yeah, like I said, I got emotional a couple of times. Yeah, it's definitely the name Huachuma fits because without that, more into your heart opener, and more into your emotions. And one interesting or funny thing that happened towards the end of the trip, one of the helpers, facilitators there was called a sensei. He was an older man, I think also from Peru. Unfortunately, his English wasn't that good, so we mainly spoke a little bit in my broken Spanish and a little bit in English. But he had a very fun and interesting vibe. And towards the end of the trip, he played with his guitar, and he also was singing some songs. And it was already getting dark. And in the retreat building, there were some windows, so we could see outside. We were lying on the floor and could see towards the roof. We could see outside and see like tree branches and stuff like that. And the funny and interesting thing for me was when he was, playing his guitar and singing, like the tree branches, they seemed like to wanting to get into our direction or his direction because they were also moved by his singing and his emotions and his good vibes. Of course, I was not, tripping heavily, so of course I knew that it was probably just the wind. And but the funny thing is, after he ended his songs and playing, there was no tree branches moving. So it was funny. Maybe it was really those trees also wanted to participate in the ceremony and were attracted by his singing and his music, or maybe it was the wind. I leave that open to you, but it was very interesting for me. So basically that was my trip. It wasn't an intense trip or anything like that. No intense visions, hallucinations, or anything like that. No intense out of body experience, but just a really intrusive trip, I would say, introspective trip, getting more into your emotions. Like I mentioned, the talking was kind of unusual for me during a trip, but it still kind of was good. And yeah, San Pedro or Huachuma definitely deserves its name as without head because it was definitely an heart opener. I hope you enjoyed this video. More videos coming soon. Like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.